Hey, it's Bill Gross, the LA probate expert, and I'm really excited to have a chance to chat today with Rilus, who's an attorney licensed and admitted to the bar both in California and Arizona, and he'll tell you how that works. Rilus, thank you. Welcome and nice to meet you.
Yeah, thanks for having me today. So I always love talking real estate and probate. So glad to be here.
Great. So give us a little background on you personally. Where'd you grow up originally, and where'd you go to law school, and how'd you get into law?
Yeah, so I'm from Arizona. So I grew up in Mesa, Arizona. My dad was actually an estate attorney, estate planning attorney. So
Uh-huh.
I started in this business during college. So I started working at his law firm and learned enough where I thought it was interesting enough, at least.
Mhm.
And I thought it was a good area to go into, given that the mortality rate is 100%. And a lot of the wealth in our country is with the older generation. So
Sure.
I went to law school in San Diego, Thomas Jefferson School of Law, private school
Nice.
there.
Nice.
And then I started surfing in law school. So it was a nice study break. And then after law school, I went back to Arizona. I first took the Arizona bar and returned to my dad's firm. And then I also took the California bar exam.
Wow.
I think it's now a 2 day exam. I get to say when I took it, it was 3 whole days back
Wow.
in the time that I took it.
Wow.
So I got licensed there too to expand my estate planning practice to California as well.
Great. So give us a breakdown. Now, of course, in Arizona, no more surfing, right?
No, so that's why I still practice in California. So that way I got a way an excuse to go to the beach and a way to pay for it and to write it off.
Exactly. Like well said, like an attorney. So lost my train of thought here. So break down for us your business. What percentage would you say is California? What percentage would you say is Arizona?
Yeah, so probably at this point, probably about 80% Arizona.
Okay.
And really, I get my best California cases from my Arizona network. It seems
There you
like I
go.
have a bigger network in Arizona, and they know me as the California guy. So if there's
Nice.
um, assets in both states or something that crosses over both places, I can handle those things.
Nice. And how much business is estate planning, i.e., avoiding probate, and what percentage is probate?
Yeah, about 50-50 in my
Okay.
business. So about 50% of my business is helping people set up their estate plans. And then the other half is administering plans or the lack of plans. If there's no will or even though there is a trust, we still end up in probate a lot because
Yep.
people don't always fund their trust. They don't get everything inside the trust. So
And
that's about
what percent don't? It seems to me, I don't know the number. I would guess over half get a great trust plan, go home and put it in a drawer somewhere, and forget to transfer the property. We're forever doing Higsette petitions here in California, I think.
yeah. I call that the fancy binder. You don't want just an expensive binder if you don't follow through and actually transfer things into the trust. I don't know. It's hard to say what percentage that is. In California, I think, people are aware of probate because it's so painful over there. It's so expensive and so time consuming. Um, but yeah, it still is. People they forget. Sometimes they might do a refinance of a property and then it ends up out of the trust for that
Right,
reason, or
right,
sometimes they don't realize it's out of the trust.
right, right. So, how would you describe the difference between probate in California and probate in Arizona? Without using the words worse on the California side, how do you describe them as different between the two?
Can I use the word easier? A little less time. So here's
Go
the
ahead, slam us
difference.
all you want. Go
So
ahead.
so in California, or let's talk about Arizona first. Arizona, we can do what's called an informal probate, meaning
Right.
we don't actually have to go to court. We don't have to have a hearing. If the kids are in agreement of who the personal representative is going to be, if there's no will, or if there
Mm,
is a will that names someone and they're all in agreement, in Arizona, we can file an informal probate. So we send everything to the court. Um, it takes my team about 2 to 3 weeks to prepare that first wave of paperwork. And then it takes the court about 3 weeks to approve it. So that's the Arizona process.
Is there a dollar amount limitation to that process?
Yeah. So in Arizona, it's 100,000 for real property is where it
So,
triggers it.
okay, so over 100,000, then they no longer can use that process, or
There's an easier process than
that
that
was my
if it's
question.
less than 100,000.
So less than 100,000 easier than that, like an affidavit type, and over 100,000, still no court hearing required. And so we have that in California for up to 167, the lower version. We don't have that process that you're talking about. Okay, so
Yeah.
anything over $100,000 in still does, if everybody's in agreement and whether it's a will or no will, then it can all be done without a court hearing. Doesn't need court approval for the sale. Fairly standard process.
Right. So we can get a personal representative appointed in about 6 weeks. Now, after they're appointed, they have to publish in the newspaper and start a 4-month creditor period. And then once that creditor period is over, then we can close a probate.
Nice.
So in Arizona, no hearings at all in that process.
That's fantastic.
And Arizona, we don't have to do the probate referee and get an appraisal.
Oh, wow. Wow. Okay.
So that's probably the biggest difference. So no hearings, no appraisal, no probate referee.
And is there such a concept as in California we have the full and limited authority, or is it all full authority?
It's basically all full authority because you don't have to, yeah, we don't have to go back. Yeah, it's usually full authority. It's rare that it's limited.
I'd imagine there's an objector or there's a fight between siblings, then you're going to have a court process that's more intense.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's the exception here.
And what are the approximate fees on a probate case in Arizona for a standard, let's say, $500,000 house and some basic stuff?
Yeah. So part of the thing that drives the fees is how many beneficiaries there are. You know, is there one single beneficiary or is there 10 people it's got to go to? If there's 10 people, my fees are going to be a little bit higher because, you know, that obviously that's 10 people that we got to deal with. Now in California, they have the set percentages that you get to charge.
Right.
So in Arizona, we're not allowed to charge percentage fees, but I charge flat fees. So my fees for probate, they start off at about $6,000. And then it goes up from there depending on how many beneficiaries and other complications.
Okay, so still a lot less than it's going to be in California.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot less.
A lot less, but a lot easier. So if you use a businessman, lower fee, but lower overhead, lower costs, lower stress, maybe higher volume business.
Yeah. And in Arizona, I would say it's easier to work with real estate professionals. You know, like I like working with the wholesalers, you know, people that can do the cash offers as
Right.
is.
Right.
Because my perspective as a probate attorney, I just want to close.
Right.
Versus, you know, if we put it on the market, I always tell my clients, you know, the speech I give, you know, before you hire a realtor, it's at least worth checking it out, right? Seeing what someone's willing to pay right now as is.
Right.
Versus rolling the dice. And depending on the situation, sometimes there's other factors, so they can't really wait. But other times, if they're willing to wait and you know, risk and see what the market brings, then that can work out too.
Seems to me the main reason to interview realtors is to weed out the dishonest realtor, because really, like you say, getting a quick cash price from some sort of investor, as long as it's competitive, there's people who are, you know, facing market pressure, then they're going to be close enough where it's probably going to be a good deal. But when you get the realtors back dealing it to his friend or his wife or something, that's where the problem can come to play. Do you see much of that in Arizona, real estate and probate real estate specifically, where there's people kind of playing the games at the edges and maybe not getting from other attorneys, maybe not getting the representation they should get?
What do you mean? Because people are after the properties, or
Yeah. So sometimes I see that in California, occasionally, not very rarely, because the way the laws are written, I'll see the attorney kind of in cahoots with the realtor and the investor, and they're all kind of, you know, systematically kind of exploiting a loophole in the process. And my goal is to kind of get in on those and, you know, maybe overbid and save the estate some money. Do you see that happening in Arizona where the process is much looser?
I guess I see it happening. It's common. People like to get their team involved, right? They like, you know, so I had a prospective client call my law firm a few months ago, And my paralegal started talking to him, started telling him how we could help out. And when we went to follow up, they said, "Oh no, we went with the realtor's attorney." So
Oh,
what ended up happening
right,
is they hired a realtor,
right,
and that realtor had his attorney
right,
as part of the team.
right.
And I guess sometimes it goes the other way. I think that's what you're talking about, right? Sometimes if people bring me, if I'm doing a probate for someone, I have my team of trusted real estate professionals
Right.
that I generally like to work with.
Right. I think you and I were talking before we started about kind of challenges of marketing yourself to attorneys and getting referrals. And one of the solutions that I came up with was really finding my own network of attorneys to refer my consumer leads to, because if the attorney is going to argue with me about who the realtor is, I can't do that. And number one, and number two, I don't know about your experience, but mine is, I may have to be careful. I'm talking to an attorney, but like in most businesses, the majority are average, right? And half are below average. In LA County, 95% of the probate cases are handled by an attorney who's done one or less in the last 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
95%.
yeah. That's the data I pulled down. I track every case, so I run those numbers. So when you see a lot of attorneys, might be great people, it might be great attorneys on the law, constitutional law, civil law, but if you only do one probate every 2 years, you don't know the latest procedures and systems, who the judges are, who your colleagues are. And so it just became easier for me to try to develop my own network of attorneys and try to find the right referral for my prospect to go to. And I think that's part of the process. So part of why I'm calling you, to be honest, is to expand my network, because I occasionally get referrals, whereas LAProbate with assets in Arizona, and obviously you'd be a great person to call with something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess two things. So one is it seems like probate and estate planning is an area that attorneys will dabble in.
Yes,
Those, oh
not
sure,
good.
I can do a trust for you, or sure, I'll do a probate.
Yeah.
Um, Now, I told you my probate fees earlier. There's attorneys in Arizona that charge a lot less, and they're probably in
Yes.
that category that you described,
Yes.
where they do like 1 to 2 a year,
Right.
and those guys don't last long, right?
Right.
Because you can't survive, charging too little of fees for a probate.
Correct.
They soon learn that.
Right. Well, I think there's certain customers in every industry. They're self-service. They're easy to work with. All they want is to shop on price. And it's almost better. I know this as a real estate agent. It's just better for them to go to a discount realtor than argue with them about my price. If I do my job well enough, I have enough business that I don't really argue with people either. As a realtor, I don't. My fees are my fees too, and I'm an expert in probate in LA County. If you want to hire me, if you want the expert, that's what I charge. You want an average realtor, good luck. I'm sure every realtor interview will lower the commission until it's zero almost to get the deal. I don't have to do that.
Yeah. So what I warn people about with realtors is the price that they tell you, right? Some realtors may say, "Oh, you could sell for some high number just to get the listing."
Right.
And then
Classic.
once they have the listing, it's, "Oh, no, actually it's you got to sell for much less than that."
Correct.
And then they get their commissions either way.
Correct.
So
Correct. That's a challenge. That's a challenge of being a realtor is the price. Sometimes it's hard to tell, even this market, it's hard to really tell the value of property until you really get inside it and look at it and see the condition. But the customer wants an estimate up front. So it is a challenge as an agent to give a price and be able to deliver on that for sure.
yeah.
What do
But,
you,
or I was gonna say, going back to earlier, what you said is bring a client to the probate attorney. That's the best way to get to know them. That's
yeah.
a guaranteed way in, right?
Yes.
That's what they want to do.
Yes.
So if you have if you find someone in need of a probate, I
Right.
feel like that's the perfect opportunity where you can get
Correct.
to know an attorney and
Correct.
show them how you can add value in the transaction. And now I'm real careful whenever someone refers a client to me. If I get a referral from a real estate professional, I'm going to make sure they're the ones that we work with in
Right.
that situation.
Right. That's nice. Well, look, I represent. I'm with a company that has 77,000 real estate agents nationwide, and I'm the national mastermind head of the mastermind for probate with our company with 1,000 members in our group. So we have about a couple hundred in California. We've got 10 or 20 in Arizona. So my goal is, number one, to always get the best service to the client, number one. And so by meeting attorneys, you got to flesh them out a little bit and see, is this an area you practice in? And one criteria I always go to is this their specialty? You know, estate planning and probate, fine, but it can't be drunk driving also. It can't be divorce also, I don't think. They're just different practices. And so I think it's important to find the right person for the customer. And then if as a result of that, you get some business, that's great. But I always find if I take care of my customers, the business takes care of itself. I don't really have to worry too much about it from my side. What do you see are the biggest mistakes that the real estate agents maybe that you don't pick, or the ones you pick that you fire off your team? What do you see as the biggest mistakes realtors make, maybe specifically regarding probate business?
You know, like the first thing I brought up, you know, just not being realistic, right? Just not, you know, given realistic expectations of what the value is. The other thing I would say is maybe just not understanding the probate process, right? So they might, I see people where they sign a contract with the grandson,
Right.
To sell the house,
Right.
although it's, you know, his mom's actually the one who's the personal representative of the estate, or
Classic.
so yeah, just not understanding that part, where if the title is in the name of the deceased still, you know, really there's no one that can enter a contract other than the personal representative of that estate.
You know, that's an interesting question. I'll tell you, in California, that's the law, as you know. But we as realtors have a certification course, and you and I talked about the attorney who put on the course. And he said, well, by law, the contract's not enforceable. You can sign the contract. He thought it was best practice to sign the contract, put the disclaimer in that's not binding. If you put in the MLS, you have to put that in as well as a disclaimer. But he felt that as long as you're in good terms with the estate and perform, you can't really get into escrow until you have the letters of authority. He thought that gave you at least the ability to perform the functions of an agent, like contact the mortgage company and rekeying the property, security, things that we might do as an agent otherwise. What are your thoughts on that practice? Well, naming the attorney, what are your thoughts on that practice?
I agree. I agree, because they do need help still, right? Even before someone's formally appointed, they are going to need some help.
Right.
And again, so I'm also a real estate investor too, right? So I kind of put on that hat, and in that world, it is good, even though it's not valid necessarily, or completely valid.
Correct.
Or I think if you put the right disclaimer in there, you're being clear. You're not trying to be misleading or any way.
Correct.
But it's good just so they just to start that relationship. And then after they are appointed as a personal representative, you would want them to go back and re-sign the contract.
Absolutely. At that time, once they had the letters, the formal letters.
So we had a situation where a lady, we started doing the probate. It came from a friend, a real estate professional, who they agreed to buy her house and to help her with the probate. We get the probate open, and then it turns out her son had to sign a contract with another wholesaler, unbeknownst to us.
Right.
And again, I'm like, that's weird, because, you know, I represented her the whole time as a personal representative. So I should be aware of every contract that she's entering into. But it was a whole lawsuit because, you know, they're both suing over their contract.
Wow. Well, look, it's been a pleasure. We got a little longer than I budgeted with your time. I really appreciate you being available. And I know we're going to have you on our Probate Weekly on February 17th as well, where you and I go a little deeper, as well as people who are listening might have questions, can jump in and ask questions. Or if you're watching this on YouTube, put your questions here and I'll bring them up on our call on February 17th. Rilus, if somebody wanted to reach out to you, I know your website is danalegalhelp.com, D-A-N-A legalhelp.com. Is that the best way to reach you?
Yeah, that's a good way. Or you can also go to rilusdana.com, my first and last name.
There you go.
And that has links to all my stuff. So links to my law firm website. I also work with attorneys. I'm doing a continuing education event for attorneys.
Nice.
Showing them how to work with real estate professionals, encouraging them to leverage this real estate professional community to add more value to their clients.
California or Arizona or both?
It's going to be via Zoom. So it's in person in Arizona, and then people can attend via Zoom as well.
For CLE for California attorneys as well?
Correct. Yep.
Wow. So some of the details, is that on your website?
Yeah, it's on that rilusdana.com. You can
Got it.
find
Look at
that
it right
under
now.
continuing education.
There you go. I see right there. Fantastic. Well, look, I'll put the link in our show notes. I'll look forward to seeing you February 17th. Your next event is before that, the week before that, actually, February 10th. So if you're interested in the CLE class with Rilus, go on the website, rilusdana.com, and I'll have the show notes. Rilus, thank you so much for your time today. Look forward to seeing you on the 17th.
All right, thanks, Bill.
Okay, bye-bye.